Springfield's Talk 1041. Hello and welcome to the show, everyone. My name is Nick Reed. And it is Thursday, tomorrow, Friday. We will be broadcasting live from Scramblers. It'll be the Friday Road Show, Independence Day. We'll be there. Shirley's Heating and Air sponsoring the Friday Road Show out at Scramblers. So there we shall see you. We will have best of programming on Monday, and it's going to be just awesome, isn't it?
All 3 hours.
All
No,
three.
you're not going to want to miss a
Nothing.
single segment.
Nothing but awesomeness. That's what it's going to be. So that is just a heads up on that. And it's a great way if a lot of times you don't even know it's best of because it's portions of shows from the previous days that you may have missed. Not everyone's able to listen to all 3 hours or listen to the 3-hour podcast minus, it's not fully 3 hours, but and so it's a great opportunity for you to catch up and maybe hear some points again that really resonate. Like, you know what? That's such a great point. I'm glad I heard it again. So that will be on Monday. Tomorrow we will be out at Scramblers. Now, the One Big Beautiful Bill, I've noticed it has gone from, and I don't know, maybe I didn't, I kept seeing OBBB. It's like, what is OBBB? And then it's One Big Beautiful Bill. And that seems like maybe that's the formal. The informal is Big Beautiful Bill. The formal is One Big Beautiful Bill, making the point that it's all done in one bill. And there's currently, and I need to get the monitor on actually here to see what the latest is in terms of vote and where things are in the House. There were, of course, questions about whether or not Republicans, there would be a block of it was said to be 10 at one point of Republicans that were like, no, this is not enough. This is just out of control spending still. We're still adding to the deficit. We're obviously still adding to the debt. This is not fixing any of the problems. And, I don't think, I think most people assume that something is going to pass. At this point, it's just a matter of, is it going to be in its current form, or is there going to be, is there going to be a block of fiscal conservative Republicans that feel as if there is anything meaningful enough they can still get that is worth a fight? Because the fight can be mean and it can be nasty, and we know how this fight goes. It's always the Republicans who are doing what they said that they would do if they got elected that have the fingers pointed at them, and they're accused of holding everything hostage, and it's not right that everything's held up by just a handful of members of Congress. Well, that's the way that it works. I mean, whether you want to say it's right or not, they're not doing anything outside the bounds of their authority. They have a vote just like everyone else, and so they know what it is that they face in terms of scrutiny from within their own party, as well as media and so forth, and they're accustomed to that. So it's going to be a matter of, all right, is what we can get, whatever scraps for the American people we can get in terms of fiscal responsibility. Is it going to be worth it? Is it going to be meaningful enough? Or should we just recognize at this point, this is as much as we're going to get? Now, the other option, of course, is just to not vote for it at all, no matter what. And then it doesn't happen. And then everyone's taxes go up because they will expire. And they know that that's the case as well. And while some people will say, well, they shouldn't worry about how they look. It isn't that, but these are individuals that, while they believe in fiscal responsibility, they also recognize the immorality of taxes going up and the fiscal irresponsibility of taxes going up. So this is the leverage that the big government Republicans have over them. It is, well, if you don't support this, if you don't, then taxes are going to go up on the average American, and they know that is something they're fundamentally opposed to, and that's just the reality of where things are right now. Now, of course, as usual, Democrats it's just the same old. They're going to kill old people. It's just so tired.
Hakeem Jeffries is still speaking.
Oh, my God.
Still.
The the they're gonna. I love this. And if you're new to the game, you may be hearing this for the first time, but for those of you who have been following what goes on in these battles for a period of time, you know it's like climate change or global warming, or where they're all, it's the same claims over and over again that are never true. They never come to fruition, right? We constantly hear, oh, in 10 years, this is going to happen. Well, in 5 years, this is going to happen. Oh, and after a while, you begin to realize, wait a minute, this is they always make the same claim, but it's never true. And it's this going to kick old people off this, going to sick people this. Estimates are this many people are going to die. And by the way, whenever you have people like the Bernie Sanders campaign volunteer that tried to take out as many Republicans as possible, and other left-wing activists that tried to assassinate Republican officials, it's because of that. It's because they believe it is a moral imperative. And we know this because they say it. They do it. They write it in editorials, as was the Bernie Sanders campaign volunteer. It's any letters they leave behind. It is because they believe Republicans are going to kill people. Republicans are going to do this. They're going to do that. And so they believe they're actually saving lives. And it is this sort of completely false and redundant rhetoric that is not only true or untrue, but at the same time, it is just enough to push a few people over the edge who actually believe this stuff, despite the fact it never happens. And this is also a lesson, or it should be, it's one that isn't taken, to Republicans who, now, you've got a couple types of Republicans that support out-of-control spending. You have those who truly believe in it, but they lie when they run for office, and they tell you, I'm fiscally responsible, I'm a conservative, but they're lying and they know that they're lying. Then you have those that understand the concept and buy into, understand the truth behind fiscal conservatism and how it is better for the country as a whole and for individual Americans, but they get scared into thinking, well, but I'm going to be accused of this, and they're going to accuse me of that, and I'm going to have constituents calling me because they're going to see the news talking about how it is I'm taking away people's health care. And so they support, that they vote for more spending. This is what you get anyway. This is not, this is more spending. No, I mean, this is not, it certainly is not paying off the debt. It's adding to the debt. It is more deficit spending. And what do you get for it? You still get accused of killing old people. It doesn't matter. It makes no difference how much more spending you do. And I wish this is something that Republicans would understand, that vote based off the next election. Vote based off of, now we can't be too extreme with things because people will get upset and they may throw us out. And if we're thrown out, we can't complete our agenda. They're going to label you extreme no matter what you do. No matter what you do. This particular big, beautiful bill, when it comes to Medicaid, it simply reinforces what is already the law anyway, and that is you can't be in the country illegally and get Medicaid. That does not apply to you. In fact, whenever Republicans have noted this, I think it was on CNN, and the host was like, well, I mean, that's illegal anyway. So it's like, yeah, that's the point. But does it stop Democrats and the media from claiming that there's going to be 17 million people, or whatever numbers they throw out there, that are going to have their health care stolen away from them? It doesn't matter how much you increase spending to protect yourself from accusations of doing horrific things. You are still going to be accused of doing horrific things. And we're watching it play out as we speak. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 90. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 68. For your Independence Day, we'll see a slight chance for rain in the afternoon. Otherwise sunny and hot with a high near 93. And looking ahead to Saturday, mostly sunny skies with a high near 90.
Sarah Myers at the one.
Thank you. The Pyramid Roofing Company. I know a lot of you are still dealing with storm damage from the storms that rolled through over the weekend. If you had storm damage, especially to your roof, I want to recommend Josh and his team over at the Pyramid Roofing Company. Now, the Pyramid team, they offer free roof inspections. They're very, very thorough. They check everything from your decking to your gutters. They get into your attic, check all of that, and then they work with you through the insurance process. And they don't make you sign anything during that process, which not all roofing companies do that, by the way. They offer residential and commercial and metal roofing services, and whether you need a whole new roof or just a simple roof repair, the Pyramid Roofing Company team has got you covered for all of your roofing needs. So if you are out there and you do have storm damage from those storms, please reach out to Josh and schedule that free roof inspection today. Now you can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
I try sometimes to speak reason to people that are reasonable Democrats. And by reasonable Democrats, I mean they're not insane. They aren't taking positions simply because it's the opposite of Republicans and Trump, but because they genuinely believe philosophically that the approach of government taking care of people leads to better results. Now, they're wrong, but they genuinely believe it. And the two major talking points on this big, beautiful bill is, well, it's one major talking point with the two prongs. And that is, of course, Republicans are going to take away millions of people's health care, which, first of all, Medicaid and having or not having Medicaid does not translate to or mean the same thing as having or not having health care. This conflation of the two, like trying to conflate immigration and illegal immigration, is an attempt to mislead people into thinking one thing is happening when it isn't. This is not taking away people's health care. I don't get Medicaid, but I have health care. Most people in this country don't have Medicaid, yet they have health care. So if there are certain people who are not supposed to be on Medicaid, and then they are taken off of Medicaid because they shouldn't be there in the first place, that is not taking away their health care. Now, the two main categories here, one, people who are in this country illegally, and they're not supposed to be on it anyway. So this is another one of those instances in which you have the left promoting and defending you and I paying for something that legally is not supposed to be received by a number of the people who are receiving it. So once again, and by the way, that drains money away from the people who actually do need it or who are supposed to get it. This is the irony of the left's demand that people who don't actually need to be on Medicaid or who aren't legally supposed to be on Medicaid, their demand that those people stay on Medicaid. Do you know who that hurts? That hurts the people who actually need it, the people for whom it was actually intended. You know, you hear all this, they pick out these stories, 12-year-old kid and the feeding tube, all these, the worst case scenarios. Their position harms those people. And that's just truth. So there is the illegals that this just essentially doubles down on and says, we're going to make sure that this funding gets cut off. But then there are those that are able to work, able-bodied people, which are, for the most part, men, guys like in their 30s, that are just, frankly, unmotivated individuals that don't work because they don't have to. They have somebody that's taking care of them, somebody that is enabling them, along with the government that is enabling them and allowing them to have any of their medical desires taken care of by the taxpayer. And this, again, is money that is taken away from those who actually need it. This, by the way, and this is where I try to speak to those of you who are reasonable Democrats. This is the Bill Clinton rule. This isn't a new concept. The great Democrat Bill Clinton, for any flaws he may have had personally, Democrats still love to tout the wonderful things that he actually did as president. One of those things were work requirements. This is just going back to the Clinton era time. This is Clinton's plan. So the message I have to those of you that I believe are reasonable Democrats, when you are listening to the rhetoric from the current Democrat Party, and they act as if having work requirements is this inhumane thing that is going to be responsible for murdering people, I would get fair to say that the majority of elected Democrats today that are parroting that lie are the same ones who defended that very move and celebrated it when Bill Clinton did it. What does that tell you? That tells you they are lying to you about what is going on. Unless they are now going to claim, oh yeah, we used to be the pieces of crap that tried to kill millions of people by taking away their health care. No. Do you know what their argument was at the time? That it needed to be done in order to make sure the people who actually needed it received it. It was a way to prevent, to stop able-bodied individuals from stealing Medicaid from the most vulnerable. Today, however, they tell you that it's the most inhumane thing ever and people are going to die because of it. Millions and millions of people are going to die because of it. They are lying to you. And, I mean, there's just no way around it. Nothing that I'm saying is untrue. There are no Democrats out there that are disputing the fact that this is a Bill Clinton era work requirement. None of them. Anytime it gets brought up, they just ignore it. They pretend like they don't hear it because they can't address it. They are lying to you. It's amazing to me, the segment of the population as human beings, that when it comes to real, true important stuff, that are perfectly fine being lied to about very serious things, about things that they claim they care so much about. We're talking about healthcare, we're talking about life and death. And then it's clear, indisputable, that you have one side of the aisle in particular lying to you, very specifically about this, and then they're just like, oh, I'm fine with that, that's fine. I mean, would you be that fine if you found out your insurance company was lying to you about something to screw you over, or your doctor was lying to you, or the hospital? Oh, you'd be outraged. You demand accountability. But for whatever reason, If it's Nancy Pelosi or Hakeem Jeffries or, Ocasio-Cortez or Bernie Sanders, well, that's perfectly fine. All right, you do you. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. Hi, everyone. Let's see. All right, we will tomorrow, Independence Day, be broadcasting live from Scramblers, so we hope to see you out there. Have yourself a little bit of breakfast. Reminder, the place, the folks, the experts, the premier individuals to take some of your outdoor area, your yard, your lawn, front yard, backyard, or maybe you got a little green space at your business and turn it into a living space area, an outdoor kitchen maybe. An area for relaxation. You might be one of those freaks that do yoga at home and do it when the sun comes up and you got just a mat that you lay down in the grass or maybe, just some sort of little platform in your driveway. You can have custom build a Zen style outdoor yoga space that is designed with water features, so you got the ambient noise there. You can have built-in integrated sound, so you can have whatever music goes along with yoga. I don't know, and just have it created for whatever it is you want. So you got two ends. You can have a massive party area. You can have the nice Zen yoga area, or you can have I got 8 different grills out here, even though I don't need that many. And here is my kegger over here because I got a refrigerator specifically and a pizza oven. Just as big and bold or as quaint and simple as you want it. It can be designed by Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoors Outdoor. Hunter Hardscapes is the site. And then you can, see some before and after of local work that's been done. And there's a cost estimate calculator too, so give you just a sense of what you're looking at in order to really add value to your home and add space, living space to your outdoor area. Also, Nick's endorsements, ksgf.com. Have you ever done yoga?
No.
I have.
Have you?
Yes, I have.
How was that? You have no depth perception.
Well, you don't really need it for yoga, I don't think.
Well, I
I
mean,
don't know.
if
Maybe
you're
I
like
don't.
doing like stretches all the way
I
down,
don't know. Yeah, I hit
or
my
like,
face on the floor. So I did it because I should do it. I do. I am a believer that it is good for you. It is healthy in a number of different ways, and it is a workout. You look at it and you think, well, you're not. You're just kind of stretching and stuff, but you get to really sweating. You're like, why am I sweating? This is crazy. And for whatever reason, I thought, well, this is something I'd be interested in trying. And I went to school with, actually dated for a little while, this gal that I found out taught yoga in the area. This was like, I don't know, 10 years ago or 12 years ago or something. And so I was talking to her about it. She goes, why don't you come by and you can do one? So anyway, I went by and it was me and mostly women. Well, it was all women. Actually, and I guess age range was all over the place, and Brooke was she was just so nice and didn't make fun of me. Uh, and I remember at one point thinking, you know what, I think I really have this down. And then I looked in the mirror and saw how off point I was. Like I was nowhere near. I was like, oh my gosh, in my head. I looked much different than I actually do. Everyone else are in these nice poses, and I was a complete total train wreck. But
I hear it's
anyway,
great for stress
yeah,
relief.
and I
Maybe I could do
really,
it.
you know what, I'm gonna make a mental note here that I'm gonna look into doing it again, like on a regular basis. I just tried it out that one time. It was in Ozark, and so it wasn't somewhere that I would have done it regularly because it wasn't close to me. But she was nice enough to say, "Hey, you want to try it out? Come by and you can sit in and participate in one of the classes." And no, yeah. Anyway, I was talking about yoga and creating your own outdoor yoga studio, and it just made me think of that.
There you
I'm
go.
wondering if you'd ever done it. Yeah, I think you'd like it. I liked it anyway. So there's that conversation coming up. Christy Fulnecki, I believe, is going to be joining us in the 7 o'clock hour. Of course, author of the week. In the 8 o'clock hour, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. And I wanted to share with you a piece from National Review, Andrew Studiford, Josh Hawley, friend of the working man. And there are more thought pieces popping up regarding people, and specifically in this case, Josh Hawley, that have run and gotten elected as Republicans, oftentimes claiming to be conservative, but increasingly are catching the eye of people who pay attention because they are operating as left-wing individuals, and he's just been doing that more and more, and that is largely what this piece is based off of. So that next, I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 90. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 68. For your Independence Day, we'll see a slight chance for rain in the afternoon, otherwise sunny and hot with a high near 93. And looking ahead to Saturday, mostly sunny skies with a high near 90.
There is a piece in National Review, Josh Hawley, friend of the working man. And going into it, just give you a sense of what the title's referencing here. And it's an evaluation of Josh Hawley operating as a left-wing Democrat and catering to left-wingers. And what they frame it, if I'm understanding the title here, friend of the working man, as he's trying to mimic Donald Trump in winning over union people, but he doesn't get why it is that union people like Donald Trump, and so he's mistakenly going down the path that Democrats go down. Now, whether that's the reason that Josh Hawley has increasingly pushed left-wing legislation or not, I don't know. But it is obvious that, he has been doing that for some time. Something happened at some point. I don't know what it is. I don't know. While that may be an interesting thing to discuss and talk about, and we may at some point, right now what is important is the fact that it's happening. And in this particular National Review piece, Andrew Studiford writes of Josh Hawley, his mistake is thinking the way to win over working class voters is by supporting policies favored by union leaders. Missouri Senator Josh Hawley is the most pro-union Republican in Congress. Just ask him. It's a point of pride for the senator, who argues that the GOP needs to embrace unions if it truly wants to represent working class voters. The problem with that line of thinking is that it confuses supporting the goals of union leaders with backing workers. Oh, I know a lot of you know, and it's been subject matter on numerous occasions here, that the priorities of the union leaders are not only oftentimes separate from the members themselves, but are the opposite of the member priorities. So if you are trying to cater to the union leaders, you are not doing the workers any favors. The senator has introduced legislation called Faster Labor Contracts Act. It would set a strict 100-day time limit from when the workers vote to organize to when a contract has to be completed. If a contract isn't reached by then and mediation cannot solve the impasse, an arbitration panel can impose a binding 2-year contract on both sides. Management would have as few as 10 days to even register a complaint about any election shenanigans before they would have to accept the results. Now think about that. This makes it virtually irrelevant. I mean, it might as well be written by union bosses to tell if your management and you see maybe a lot of union members are coming to you and like, hey, we were intimidated, we saw ballot box stuffing. You would have 10 days, as few as 10 days, to register a complaint. And if you haven't done it by that point or had, some sort of movement or proof of it, you just have to accept the results anyway. Even if management does make a complaint, an arbitrary panel, according to Josh Hawley's legislation, could force the company to accept the union anyway. Hawley's legislation would give unions a way to contest defeats that could result in the union getting officially recognized as the workers' representation despite being defeated. The legislation was pared down from an earlier, even more pro-union proposal that, among other provisions, would have prohibited managers from making the case to their workers against forming the union. The Missouri senator has also introduced legislation to raise the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. Now, we've talked about the devastation this will do on red states specifically that have lower cost of living. And so they're able to have quality of life with minimum wage at, 7.25, 7.5. And it would be a devastating blow to small businesses in those red states by more than doubling the amount they have to pay entry-level workers. This is Josh Hawley's push. This is online with Mamdani in New York that is wanting a $30 minimum wage, which is not quite 50% of their current, or 50%. I think they're at 15 right now. So what Josh Hawley is wanting to do to a lot of the red states is what Mamdani, the communist, is wanting to do in New York. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page and understanding this. So the piece back to the National Review, noting that Hawley has recently introduced a legislation raising the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. Such an increase would be a boon to union workers since it drives up the cost of non-union labor, and collective bargaining contracts often uses the minimum wage as a baseline for contract negotiations. Non-union workers, i.e. most workers, would instead feel a pinch as employers hire fewer workers and cut hours to absorb the cost, which, of course, we all know. And this is something that the Republican Party has long pointed out. Josh Hawley, though, has taken the position of the left on this. Hawley has also come out against state right-to-work laws that prohibit private sector employees from being coerced into supporting a union if they don't want to. Specifically, the law prohibits union management contracts that contain so-called security clauses requiring workers to back the union or be fired. Currently, 27 states have them. Quote, I don't think it's fair to ask union organizers to have to organize for people who are not paying union dues, he explained last year. He had supported the law previously, but now thinks, quote, it's not fair that such workers get the benefit of a union contract. Note that in each case, Hawley's concern is what is fair for the organizers, union leaders, not the individual workers. What if those workers don't agree with what the union does? What if they don't like the contract the union negotiated on their behalf? What if they think, that being the workers, the union is in bed with the management? What if the workers want to withhold the dues and protest to get the union to listen to their concerns? That would be prohibited under Hawley's agenda. Hawley seems to assume that unions are the collective voices of the workers. Hawley never seems to ask, if the workers in a union don't wish to belong, then is the union really representing those workers? Is it fair to coerce those workers into supporting the union if they don't feel solidarity with it? Hawley doesn't appear to have much direct experience with unions. He's never belonged to one himself, was criticized as anti-union earlier in his career, and has a lifetime rating of just 11% on the AFL-CIO's Senate scorecard. In short, Hawley's conversation to the union side appears to be relatively recent. Labor leaders have been trying to build inroads to the Republican Party, and Hawley is the most visible fruit of that effort. Now, President Donald Trump's reelection plays into this. The president has a complicated relationship with unions that runs hot and cold, but his rhetoric often fits right in at union halls. Leaders such as Sean O'Brien, the International Brotherhood of Teamsters president, are trying to build on this relationship through actions, for instance, speaking at the Republican National Convention, as O'Brien did last summer. Hawley, who got a shout-out in one of O'Brien's speeches, is on the leading edge of this would-be alliance. He presents his pro-union stance as a 200-proof version of President Trump's Make America Great Again philosophy. Quote, there was a time, this is Hawley, when Republicans knew that American strength depended squarely on American workers and their way of life, family, neighborhood, church, union, hall, he said in an op-ed titled The Promise of Pro-Labor Conservatism for the populist commentary site Compact. Hawley boasted, I have stood on the picket lines with the UAW and the Teamsters. All Republicans should do it. Hawley is part of a wave of lawmakers trying to chart a new path for the Republican Party after former President Donald Trump's 2016 election upended the status quo of conservative politics. For Hawley, that's meant eschewing the traditional business-friendly stances espoused by Republicans in favor of the working class, opined the Kansas City Star last year. Missouri became the 28th right-to-work state in 2017, only to have that law overturned by a union-backed vote referendum the following year. Hawley had been the state's attorney general during that period. It's a safe assumption that Missouri voters' rejection of the law, the referendum passed by a 2-1 margin, affected Hawley's thinking. Matthew Ginsburg, general counsel for the AFL-CIO, praised Hawley's efforts during a June labor law conference at New York University. He said that Hawley was attempting to get the Protecting the Right to Organize Act, a union wish list bill that overturns right-to-work laws, among other provisions, through the Senate in piecemeal fashion. The PRO Act had stalled in previous Congresses. Hawley was helping the union leaders reach across the aisle, Ginsburg stated. Hawley's mistake is thinking the way to win over working-class voters is by supporting policies favored by union leaders. Trump himself is proof that that approach is not the case. His first administration took a free market approach that usually had union leaders fuming, but he nevertheless made serious inroads with union voters, especially in Rust Belt states. Trump did it by going over the union leaders' heads and appealing directly to the voters themselves. It's a lesson that Hawley seems to have overlooked. Now, I got to take a break and then just give a few thoughts on this. And some of you may be thinking, gosh, it seems like he's talking about Hawley a lot lately. Every time I talk about Josh Hawley, it is because of something that he is in the news for. It's not random. It's not, hey, this is Pick on Josh Hawley Day. It is because he is, joining up with Ocasio-Cortez or Bernie Sanders, or, pushing price controls on companies, or, doubling the amount of minimum wage that red states are going to have to pay people, all of these. And the reason that he gets this attention is because it allows the media to say, look, a conservative supports these efforts. So look at this bipartisanship. He gives the left-wing media an opportunity to present these left-wing ideas as reasonable. And so the frequency with I speak of Josh Hawley is only matching the frequency in which he is getting in the news for promoting left-wing causes. And this latest piece in National Review is no exception. We'll make sure this National Review piece on Josh Hawley is up at KSGF.com, must-read headlines. And, again, it goes through how it is that, and this is yet another area in which Josh Hawley is acting as essentially an operative. He's leading the charge for left-wing Democrat. I mean, he really is becoming the best friend that Democrats can have, or best ally when it comes to a lot of their pet causes, which I know is crazy. Now, I will say this. He did end up voting for. And he's gotten, the media is fit to be tied over him because he voted for the big, beautiful bill after writing op-ed pieces labeling it, stealing, medical care away from vulnerable. And he wrote an op-ed piece in the New York Times. He was on CNN, all these left-wing outlets, because here's a Republican conservative that is, even he notes how horrible this is. Well, he ended up voting for it anyway, and so they're quite upset at him for doing that. Which this is a lesson that some of these left-wing Republicans never seem to learn. They get really excited when these left-wing outlets love them and gush over them, and they think, oh, they love me now, until you do something that falls out of step, and then they turn on you again. This particular piece, it labels out, lists out, explains what it is that Josh Hawley has been doing to cater to the union leaders and to help them, particularly when it comes to rigging the system through legislation, to make it much, much easier for them to unionize and to make it much more difficult for private business owners to have at least a fair shake when it comes to these elections, that, with whether or not unionizing takes place. But it notes the context of Trump and the difference between the contradiction between Hawley's approach and Donald Trump's approach. And it is, to me, it's being, I don't know if generous is the right word. It's giving Hawley the benefit of the doubt. Instead of labeling him as somebody that has just been turning into a left-wing senator, it is attributing this particular left-wing move to him seeing that Donald Trump has made inroads with union workers, and so he's just trying to do the same thing. He's like, hey, this is the future of the Republican Party. This is great. The Republican Party is, has become the working man's party. The Democrat is no longer the working man's party. This is, these are tremendous inroads that have been made because of Donald Trump, and so I want to continue it. But what they note is the approach is opposite. Donald Trump did it, much like Ronald Reagan was successful in winning over so many Americans. He went over the media's head. And this piece notes, which is accurate, Donald Trump won over union workers not by catering to the union the union leadership, but by going over their head. By talking directly to them about, here's what my policies are going to do that are just good for all working people. This is why in the run-up to the election, you had a contradiction between what the unions officially endorsed in terms of the presidential election and then the actual workers. You'd have these stories about, oh, this union over here is endorsing Kamala Harris or Joe Biden or not endorsing anyone. But then the workers would come out and say, hey, by the way, we actually voted on our own and we support Donald Trump. Josh Hawley's approach is not to do what Donald Trump did, and that is ignore or bypass the union leadership to talk directly to the workers. It is to ally with the union leaders, which is what the Democrats do. And the union leaders have a purpose, and that is to help Democrats get reelected, help the Democrat policies get put in place because it helps line their pockets. It is not to represent the workers. And so even if Josh Hawley's goal is the genuine goal of winning over blue-collar workers, his approach is the exact opposite of Donald Trump's, and it is instead in line with Bernie Sanders. That National Review piece, again, will have up at KSGF.com under the must-read headlines. Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line regarding Josh Hawley. Will Josh Hawley switch political parties and be the Democrat nominee for president? Another saying, I think Hawley is hurt because Trump did not pick him for any heads of like cabinet positions or any high profile offices because he seemed kind of in the Trump crowd the first go around. And another just flat out saying someone is paying him. Well, someone's paying all these folks. It's just the nature of it. Again, this is a whole separate discussion. What has happened to Josh Hawley? And I don't know. Sometimes it really is as simple as, if a person is, if they don't have like real solid moral convictions and beliefs, then they are impacted by their surroundings. And it doesn't mean they're a bad person. It happens to good people all the time. And you'll have somebody that's motivated and, just by nature. And so it's about getting things accomplished, not because of any sort of moral belief or imperative, but just because that is the definition of success and value and contribution. Look, I am doing things, I'm accomplishing things. And if you are that sort of person without a real moral grounding in a belief system, and you end up in Washington, D.C., well, you're surrounded by people who are left-wingers, who want more government. And so that very easily assimilates someone who maybe once upon a time spent most of their time in Missouri and had, quote, Missouri values. And so that was the motivating factor. That was the environment in which you have somebody that pushes for those more conservative values. But then all of a sudden you are in a different environment and you are surrounded by left-wing activism and so forth, and that's just what you become. And sometimes it is as simple as that. Sometimes it's more complicated, but sometimes it's simple. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. Welcome to the show, everyone. Ozarks Elder Law, Ladies in White, Lori Rook. You are familiar with her. You know, she had that massive undertaking running for statewide office in order to, look out for conservative values. And she is, of course, now focused, as she has been for years, on helping people when it comes to planning. And so much of that is still protecting you from government. You don't have any planning at all. Government's going to make a decision where your stuff goes. And you may think, we don't have an estate. We don't quote, have much. What you see, that's all we got right here in this living room. Well, you might think that means government won't involve itself, but you might be wrong. Or family may fight over things. You know, that favorite chair that is filled with holes and smells like smoke and has stains on it. All of a sudden, you got kids and grandkids that have memories tied to that and they want it. And then there's fighting over it and so forth. And so anyhow, it's so much better all the way around to have all that stuff planned. And you may not know what you need to plan. Free consultation, Ozarks Elder Law, 10 area locations, and then whatever planning you do need, they give you the pricing up front, one cost, not hourly, so you know exactly what it is when you make that decision to do it, how much it is going to cost you, and well worth it. I'm sure it will be. OzarksElderLaw.com, also KSGF.com, Nick's endorsements. Christy Folnecki, is your power back on?
Yep. Yes.
Finally. How long do you guys have?
It was rough. Well, only until Tuesday, but from Sunday night till Tuesday.
Well, that's a long time.
But, yeah.
That's a long time. 2 hours at our house was a long time.
Oh, yeah.
And we had running water.
Yeah, we did not. I mean, you have 6 kids and a baby. Well, so 8 people and a baby. So that it's pretty rough.
Within 30 minutes, had you all turned on one another? You're forming your different tribes all of a sudden. Yeah, you have break-offs from the Comanche tribe. And
I know. I mean, I thought you really, well, my one daughter was like, well, you really learned that, we're very blessed with everything we have.
Oh, yeah.
When everything goes out. But, I mean, you share toilets that don't flush because we're on a well. And everybody's like, well, you need to go get the water and put it behind the
So what were you doing? Like, what did you do? Because it's not like you're across the street from a Casey's where you can just go use the restroom. You're out of it.
Toilets. And then when the power comes back on, you flush it.
You got 8 people and it was 2-3 days.
I know.
This does not add up. I mean, I don't care how many toilets.
Bathrooms.
God. Thank goodness Division of Family Services didn't pay a visit. I can only imagine what...
We've been without water in just this year because something happened to our well. I mean, these are like the city slickers who are trying to go out there, and we still have lived there for like 7 years, and we're just still trying to figure out how to survive.
So it seems like a generator may be a good idea for you all.
Actually, we talked about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if it didn't come back on Sunday night or Tuesday night, then we were going to go to a hotel because it was getting pretty hot. I mean, we opened all the windows. Yeah. Thank goodness it's been pretty cool here. But there's that. I think what it is. Okay, so this term, did you see this term?
Well, you have to tell me what it is.
That I sent it. Okay. What I think it was a derecho. I think that's how you pronounce it. An inland hurricane. I think that's what this whole thing was.
Oh, okay. I'm not familiar with this at all. I'm learning every hour. Well, before the show started, I learned Magic Minute. I had no idea what that was. Sarah explained that to me. That evidently is a rule in the House of Representatives that allows certain ranking officials to speak as long as they want, as opposed to having the limit.
Jeffries is doing right now.
Yeah, Hakeem Jeffries. He's been up there yammering on about how Republicans are going to kill old people since before the show started, and that's evidently the Magic Minute. I never heard of that before. And so now you're sharing with me some derecho.
My phones and internet went out of my office, which that was a problem too, all at the same time. And so I was talking to MediaCom, and this lady from Iowa said, we had this same phenomenon, this really high winds in Iowa, and it's called a derecho, an inland hurricane that causes all this damage. Because I was watching it and I thought there was a lot of, we were like Southwest Springfield next, so there was a lot of damage there.
Horatio
Yeah.
sounds like the name of a child that was born from a couple that was mixed race, like a white person and a Hispanic person. And he's like, I want Darren. And she's like, I want Horatio. And so they're finally just settle on Duratio.
These are random, so random thoughts, Sarah.
It almost sounds like a math equation, really.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. I think
What's the mathematical duratio here?
Yep. See?
It also sounds like something maybe somebody made up to mess with you. They're
Well,
like,
I
yeah,
mean-
it's called a duratio. We had them up here in Iowa. You know, it's a pretty common thing.
These MediaCom people have all kinds of information for me.
Yeah.
Because I'd never heard that word before. And she said I hadn't heard about it either until it happened here. But I mean, seriously, it looked like a tornado outside if you're watching it.
It did come just
It was
immediately.
crazy.
I mean, it was, I've never seen, at least where we were, which was at home, but that fast. I think we've all been out where all of a sudden, like, oh my gosh, the wind just picked up quickly. But that extreme and that quickly, I had not experienced anything like that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get some news and then traffic, do all of the.
So,
Yeah, you've done the weather, the duratio weather this morning.
Duratio is a Spanish word for straight ahead. And that is,
really?
yep. And that's your fun fact of the
Yeah,
day
thank
about
you,
Duratio.
everyone.
The winds are straight winds, so that makes sense.
Weather by Fulnecky.
And now, weather by Sarah, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today, we'll see sunny skies with a high near 90. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 68. For your Independence Day, we'll see a slight chance for rain in the afternoon, otherwise sunny and hot with a high near 93. And on Saturday, mostly sunny with a high near 90.
Someone had also sent information about derecho, noting that now this is AI overview. Medieval Latin origin that means duration, and it says that it's type of damaging thunderstorm, windstorm, characterized by long-lasting straight-line wind event with gusts of at least 58 miles an hour. It's pretty specific, or greater, and a swath of wind damaging extending more than 240 miles. Okay. That's all very specific.
I know.
Like 58 miles per hour, 240 miles. It's okay.
What if it's 57?
Well, then it does
That's
not count.
right.
Sadly, there is no place for
They're
that
like,
storm.
"So it's not a derecho."
You are not derecho. Nice
Thank you
try.
for breaking news.
Nice try.
That it could still be it.
So
Yes.
I thought this is an important piece of information, as currently the One Big Beautiful Bill is being debated in the House, and apparently a lot of Democrats have been out there claiming that part of the One Big Beautiful Bill is it allows Donald Trump to cancel elections.
Jeez. And what line is that?
Yeah. Here's a couple of postings from different left-wing outlets. If this passes, we won't have another election. To those of you who don't know what's buried in the big bogus bill, prepare yourself for what is coming. If the Senate passes the One Big Beautiful Bill and Trump signs it, and it becomes law, here's what it really means. He can delay or cancel elections legally. He can ignore Supreme Court rulings for a year or more. It's just this totally random stuff. And there were a number of postings, but even that was too much for left-wing outlets like the Associated Press, in which these disinformation campaigns from Democrats were prevalent enough that the AP had to write a story saying it's not true. This is not in there. There's nothing in the Big Beautiful Bill that says Donald Trump can cancel elections.
At least they did something right.
And of course, what I do find once again funny is the Democrats who are out there spreading this disinformation is the same. They're the same people who support a political party that canceled their elections.
That's right. I know.
They're like, oh yeah, you know that election for Joe Biden you had? Yeah, we don't think so anymore. So here's your new person. And they're like, okay. We're fine with that.
Steal an election and helping China the last time.
Well, you know.
I mean, did anybody mention that in the article? Everybody's so hysterical about this.
Yeah.
But I'm always like waiting. Okay, they're gonna cite like the page and the number. Yeah. No,
or the exact
there's
text.
no citation.
Yeah, that's the exact text. Like here, it says on this section 8, subsection 5. Here's that's a good point. They never put that.
Well, especially as an attorney, I'm thinking, okay, well, let me see, because
Right.
a lot of times that's
Something
maybe
taken out of
attorneys or maybe
context.
staff, and then I'm like, I listened to all of this, and I still haven't heard anyone that's talking, at least on the Democratic side.
90% of the time, when the left, probably more than that, when the left makes an accusation, they have absolutely they don't even cite where it is they get the accusation from. I hear it all the time. People, they'll call, "Oh, yeah, you're a liar." I'm like, about, okay, so what? What is, or that's, they'll make it. I'm like, okay, so what is it that I'm saying that's not true?
Right.
And they don't even, like, they never have an answer. There's nothing whatsoever.
Right.
I was like, okay, I mean,
Well,
it's got to cancel elections. Where is that exactly? Well, it's, see, that's the thing. It's buried so deep you can't find it.
It's not in the written word. It's buried so deep.
Speaking of, so have you heard the latest successes on Project 2025?
No. Mm-mm.
Well, and that's my point. You would not believe people on the left, if you can kind of, if you know or are able to, I don't have a tremendous amount of people in my social media world that constantly post left-wing stuff, but there are a few people. And so if you get, like, you can go oftentimes on their social media and see what lefties are saying. You would think they live in this Project 2025 world. I was like, are they still talk?
Really?
Yes.
I didn't even know that was a thing right now.
It is in the minds of the left. And I'm like, well, this is an amazing
When you
surprise
try to
to
get into those minds,
I know.
those mental illness minds.
But it's crazy the different world they live in. In their minds, this Project 2025 thing that this is happening, and it's like that's news to me. I like, but of course they never give an example. They're never like, oh, well, in 2025, see this, 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 and that is what happened here, here, here. They never do that. They're just like, oh, Project 2025. Like, what are you? What world are you living
But
in?
there's no examples, so we don't know what that
no,
means.
there's not.
Okay,
Because you know why? Because it's buried so deep.
Jeez.
The fact that
don't
you can't
know.
find it is proof that it's there, buried deep.
Conservatives have always functioned on facts and getting things done, so that's a difference.
It's
I
what
mean,
makes conservatives a little more boring.
right.
You know, truth, facts. You don't get to say things, or you choose not to say things like they're going to kill your grandma.
Well, I mean, but they can't argue with that Trump is actually doing what he was elected to do. I mean, he's actually fulfilling his promises. So,
Yeah.
I mean, they're just coming unglued.
Well, yeah, Project
you know?
2025. I was making the point earlier that this is one of the reasons I believe young people are susceptible to, socialism, communism, Bernie Sanders, Democrats, is because they don't realize the things that they're being told by people on the left. That's not new.
Yeah, right.
Like the threats and the scared Republicans are going to steal Social Security, or right now they're going to kick people out of medical care, and grandma's going to have her feeding tube removed, and so young people are like, oh my gosh, that's horrible, I can't. And then everyone else is like, oh no, this is what they say. They always say this, and it still sticks in my mind because it was so hilarious when Al Gore was running against George Bush. So this is back in 2000, like the turn of the century. This is how far back.
Yeah, the hanging Chad days.
Yes, but yeah, even before that, when they were running against each other, and SNL had the the fake debates, or they had the debate sketches, and Will Ferrell was George Bush, and I'm trying to think who was Al Gore. Maybe Hammond was his first name. Anyway, and so there was a part where it was Al Gore's turn, and he was talking about his plan for this, and he's like, and under my opponent's plan, they'll, kick your grandma out of the nursing home, beat her with bricks, inject her with syphilis, and light her on fire. It was, I remember the injector with syphilis or gonorrhea part, and it was playing off, these absurd accusations but and they were doing it prior to that as well, but it's just like the same thing over and over again. But people who are just paying attention for the first time, whatever their age is, or young people who haven't been privy to or don't really get that deep into the history, don't realize that this is
especially when
it's just the same thing over and over
especially when they do that thing where they're not so much doing it anymore because Democrats have been coming unglued for the last 6 months, but when they have the same talking points, they've always been really good at having the same talking points. So it used to be like every Sunday show, they would say the same thing, and you're thinking, like, did they send an email around with what they're supposed to say?
Yeah.
So, and then those kind of things make the headlines, and people that aren't paying attention, that's where they get their quotes from.
Well, and okay, so how funny is this? At the same time, so they're still talking about this Project 2025 thing, this conspiracy theory. So here's the story from the Daily Wire. Panicking Dems turn to familiar-sounding playbook. Project 2029 aims to create a list of policies for the next Democratic presidential nominee. So they are coming up with their own, but this is Project 2029.
Can you not come up with another name?
No, but I love that they're this is another, hey, let's just try to do what they're doing, not understanding why. But here is an instance in which they are trying to mimic something that actually isn't even happening, that in their minds is some conspiracy that's playing out. And
yeah, that's not very good marketing, I would say.
Project 2029.
So what are they going to do in this project?
Oh, I think call Republicans Nazis and things like that. So it's just a fancy new title. It makes it more official.
It's
The
going to
article
be
says
interesting.
it's
Oh,
going
go
to
on.
be things like bold, popular solutions like increasing the minimum wage, which,
Oh,
of course, Josh
gosh.
Hawley's leading the charge on that right now. Ending sub-minimum wages are just the beginning, and it's just more of the same. More of the same.
It'll be interesting to see what they run on that Trump has undone. Like, are you going to run on, well, I am for opening the border
Right.
and
Yeah.
let's tear down this wall?
But we're going to give
Uh,
fast pass access to anyone that's a convicted rapist.
yes, that's right.
If you're a child molester, now if you've done all of those things, then you get a golden pass. You get
Yes.
you get
We're flying everyone
yeah
from El Salvador
yes
back into the United States.
yeah
Yeah.
we're going to evict successful people from their homes and just give
Yeah.
you theirs.
Find out you J6ers
Yeah,
over Barton
that's
and
right.
put you back in jail.
We're going to send you to alligator Alcatraz,
Jeez. That is so hilarious.
isn't it? Did you
Like,
hear?
they're like, I mean, the liberals are like unhinged on that thing.
Did you hear where when Trump was down there and he called
What?
Biden an SOB? Did you hear this?
Let me see. Let me hear.
So he says it's
Down there, but I don't
yeah.
think.
So he trails off. He's talking about Biden trying to imprison him,
Yeah.
and he trails off, calling him a son of a.
Place for keeping him out the pot, he was going forward. Betting wrong, probably sticking to the Hey, Biden wanted me in here. Okay. He wanted me. It didn't work out that way, but he wanted me in here, that son of a.
That son of a.
Gangster Trump. Oh, that's awesome.
We got Christy Fulnecki with us. Break, traffic, weather, and more. Pyramid Roofing Company talking text line is 447 KSGF. I'm Nick Reed. Author of the week coming up, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. That is in the 8 a.m. hour. Tomorrow morning, we will be broadcasting live from Scramblers Independence Day, sponsored by Shirley's Heating and Air. A traffic update now. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 90. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 68. For your Independence Day, we'll see a slight chance for rain in the afternoon, otherwise sunny and hot with a high near 93. And looking ahead to Saturday, mostly sunny skies with a high near 90.
Chrissy Folnecki with us.
Yes, yes.
Now, I kind of hesitate to talk about this because the visuals of it are what is so funny, but we will get it up at ksgf.com so you can check it out. There was, I guess this was in somewhere in the Capitol, and there were a number of people. They said they were doctors. They wore lab coats, so clearly they were. And they were part of an organization with Democratic Doctors for something. And they decided to hold.
It can't be anything good.
They decided to hold a press conference somewhere in the Capitol in order, as doctors, to let everyone know Republicans were going to murder people. And it is so hysterical because now this is an area where tourists are and stuff. Everyone is completely ignoring them. And it was being filmed clearly by somebody that was, like a Democrat or somebody from their organization filming it. And I guess they were live streaming it. I'm sure they must have been because I doubt they would have posted it otherwise. All it did, people just mocked it because they're up there talking and people, they're walking around them and in front of them. And it is the most humiliatingly hilarious thing. Like
standing like the rotunda or something.
It looks like it's the rotunda.
Yeah,
there's a
it's
gateway.
Not a good place to be standing.
Sarah, there's a Gateway Pundit story about it, so you can find the video and we can post it. I mean, I play the audio of it, but all you hear is them, kind of yammering on, and then lots of crowd noise. But it's just so funny because no one is even paying attention to them. It's not even registering that these people are in existence, but they just keep talking on and on.
That's so funny.
But with this self-importance, like we're so important and not realizing that nobody cares, which I thought is a pretty great description of a lot of people on the left that love to do these protesting and stuff. You're not talking to anyone who cares.
Yeah.
And that vision.
Okay, so you're like the people that came out like the COVID doctors.
Yeah, right.
Okay, well, I'm not going to listen to you. Well, for one thing, I mean, when you do a press conference, you always do it outside. You always do it on the east side or southeast, whatever.
Well, I think
that's a terrible place to stand anyway.
Well, I think part of the reason that they probably did it the way they did is because they're idiots.
I know. That's right.
I would guess.
And you think like all those people that brought their kids there and trekked to the Capitol want to listen to you? I don't think so.
Can you imagine if you're just a normal person? Yeah. Maybe you vote once in a while, but you're not overtly political one way or another, and you see like all these different sharings of videos popping up and people mocking. I look at these idiots, and then you watch it and you're like, wait, that's Dr. Johnson. That's my doctor. Like, oh my!
It's time to switch.
Wait, my doctor's an idiot.
Well,
that's why my appointment got moved.
They shouldn't have. AMA and all those doctors should not have become so political, and it happened during COVID. Nobody's going to believe you now. So,
yes, they did not. They did not demonstrate a level of trustworthiness.
You know what? I mean, I hope Trump does something about DC. Did you see that intern that got killed on Capitol Hill? Yeah. I mean, that is so frightening. Since one of my kids just worked there.
It was just like the shooting. Was it?
It was an intentional shooting, but it wasn't for him. It was whoever was around there.
Right.
Like a drive-by thing. But that's so sad. Congressional intern, University of Massachusetts. And there's like tons of people there right now because of the 4th of July, the fireworks and everything. And so I hope he can do something. And about the DC jail, it is so I mean, it's always been dangerous on Capitol Hill, and then they built the baseball, the Nationals and stuff right there. But that is my opinion that we have to do something.
Yeah, that's a really
Take
good
over
one.
DC. I don't know what you could do. Maybe make it just split it off and make it part of Virginia and Maryland.
Yeah, actually,
I think you should.
I 100% agree with that.
Is somebody doing that?
So, the Democrats want to make it a state.
No,
which is
It's already like a third world country right now.
Well, it deliberately isn't a state because then you have state with jurisdiction over like the federal government in certain capacity. I mean, and so Washington D.C. was deliberately not made a state. I mean, it was very specific that this be a district that is outside the authority of the states. But the Democrats wanted to become a state because it's 90% plus left-wing liberals, and then we get 2 more senators and we get another member of Congress, and so that gives them an ability to try and they're trying to rig the system as always. But what they say is, well, it's just not fair because those people, they don't have a vote. As a state, there's no electoral representation, right, when it comes to voting for president. And so to what you said, I've always said, then divide it up.
Yeah,
Make all those. Now, the actual infrastructure, however, almost like, I guess, the Vatican maybe, where you have the actual buildings are not under the authority of whichever states, and the land itself. So like the Capitol and the Capitol grounds, that would be its own entity. But the residential areas, because that's what their concern is, well, the residential, the people who vote, they aren't given a real voice with the Electoral College. Have those areas divided up amongst the other states.
Yeah.
And just do that.
Oh, you've said, I didn't know you said that
before.
Well, it seems the easiest thing. There's a natural dividing line because you have the Potomac right there. Mm-hmm. And so all of that goes to Virginia and all of this goes to Maryland, because then at least your governors could do something about what's going on.
Right.
Because the whole jurisdiction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, because the jurisdictional, I think we talked about this last week, didn't we? When we were talking about the guy on the mall that was driving in a circle. And then, like, when we were there, the D.C. police versus the Capitol police, and half the time nobody knows what the other person's doing. And then when you're on Capitol Hill, it's really confusing because then, like you're saying, the neighborhoods, like where the South Metro is, you have all of those neighborhoods. And, I mean, they're nice, high-end places, but the crime is out of control.
Well, and so that, to me, is the one actual reasonable way of remedying that issue of the voters not having a vote. They won't do it for a couple of reasons. One, because then there would be no need for a mayor and a council and all of those different Washington, D.C. You have so many government jobs that are, quote, Washington, D.C. jobs that aren't federal government, but the District of Columbia jobs, like Mayor Bowser and her staff. And so they certainly aren't going to put themselves out of jobs. But also, that defeats the purpose, because the whole point, again, for Democrats is to get two more
which we do not want.
And that would and that shows you that they don't really care about the people having a voice. It's about getting 2 more seats.
Yeah, and I was talking to I wish I could remember his name, but he's one of the bailiffs. I was in Dallas County in court. He was
Leland?
Really nice. What's his name?
Leland.
How do you know? Hello, I'm sorry I don't remember because that was a couple days ago, but I was telling him about the whole DC jail thing and how, they wouldn't let for J6ers, they wouldn't let their attorneys in. And then, it was almost impossible for me. I mean, I had to raise hell to get into that place to see my client. But then I was explaining how a lot of the congressmen and women, they wouldn't let them in there. Yeah. And so because this whole jurisdictional thing, nobody knew how to get in. And even when Trump pardoned them, it's so confusing. So you definitely don't want them. And plus before the sentencing hearing with my clients, we went through all the statistics about the juries, and it was some high percentage. I can't remember. I know it was over 50% of the DC residents wanted J6ers to get the death penalty.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So
yeah.
I'm like,
well, why not? Ashley Babbitt deserved to be shot.
Well, right.
In their minds. I mean, the Capitol police officer who murdered her, unarmed, not anywhere close to him in any capacity that she was a danger, shot her dead, and he was celebrated as a hero. I mean, so that's their approach to Trump supporters, just imprison him or kill him. Well, and as you noted, that there were a number of Republican members of Congress that were not allowed in to see the January 6ers. And I think we should all notice what they didn't do. They didn't assault law enforcement.
Good point. Yeah.
Which right now, of course, they're under, there are charges against one Democrat member of Congress because she assaulted It was ICE agents, or it was at a detention center. It was law enforcement. And of course, they act like that's outrageous. Now, can you imagine if Marjorie Taylor Greene had
Oh,
had
yeah. I mean,
assaulted law enforcement trying to get in to see January 6ers? They would have expelled her from Congress. They would have demanded she be put in prison. But when a Democrat does it, well, they're just doing their job as a member of Congress. Free
yeah, well, maybe
speech.
the media says that, but everybody else thinks you're a crazy wacko that can't. I mean, you're in Congress and you're acting like a crazy person. So you're just like all the other mentally ill liberals that you represent.
Yeah, it is a good representation. Chrissy Falnecki with us more coming up. I'm Nick Reed. Christy Falnecki with us. I had mentioned earlier how, Democrats, the accusations they make about Republicans and how they're going to kill your grandma and take away medical care and all these horrible things, that when you've been around a while, you realize that this is what they always say. And of course, it never happens. They never actually have a real story of that happening. Or if they claim they do, then it turns out it's not actually true. It's taken out of context or made up out of whole cloth.
Yeah.
And I referenced the fact that when I first realized and really started paying attention that, wait a minute, this is almost a cartoonish joke because Democrats constantly make these claims, was back in 2000, and it was the George Bush versus Al Gore race. And I referenced, and I remembered it to this day, there was an SNL sketch in which Al Gore was debating George W. Bush, and this is the segment of the debate in which it's playing off of the same thing. Democrats always make these claims about Republican policies. And
Jim, let me tell you about a friend of mine. Her name is Etta Munson. She's 94. She's a widow living on Social Security in Sparta, Tennessee. Etta was born with only one kidney. She also suffers from polio, spinal meningitis, lung, liver, and pancreatic cancer, an enlarged heart, diabetes, and a rare form of cystic acne. Now, several recent strokes, along with an unfortunate shark attack, have left her paralyzed and missing her right leg under the knee. Just last week, she awoke from a coma to find that due to a hospital mix-up, her left arm had been amputated, infected with syphilis, and then reattached.
Mr. Vice President, we are short of time.
As you can imagine, Jim, Etta's prescription drug bills are staggering. They run to nearly $113 million a day. And she tells me that some weeks she has to choose between eating or treating her Lyme disease. Now, under my plan, Etta's prescription drugs would be covered. Under my opponent's plan, her house would be burned to the ground. And that is wrong. That is just wrong.
So, I mean, this is, I
That
mean,
pretty much summarizes the debate this week.
I mean, it's, and you do. It's the same thing with these people over and over and over again. Worst case scenario, all these horrible things are going to happen. And, that was, again, that was 25 years ago. And at that point, Democrats had been doing. Now, that's back when SNL did, I thought, a pretty good job of, parodying both sides.
Yeah, right.
Because obviously Al Gore, the Democrat from the Clinton administration, running for president of the United States, and they still saw the humor in the over-the-top rhetoric that Democrats always pull out, and so that's what they were playing off of, and it was really funny, of course. And George Bush is, of course, he was portrayed as an idiot that didn't know what was going on, because that's pretty much how their default for all Republicans. They're idiots, and they don't know what they're doing.
Do that today, though.
What, the humor on the Democrat part?
Yeah.
Well, no, not at all. That's why. I mean, for Pete's sakes, 4 years of Joe Biden.
No, that's right. I mean, you have plenty of material.
And they never, ever played off of that.
I know.
I mean.
And this is not even a comedy show.
The closest
they talk about it all the time.
The closest they came to finding humor in the reality of the absurdity of the Democrats and Joe Biden's cognitive ability was when they did a cold open, and it was before the Biden debate with Trump, and it was Democrats. I think it was before that, but it was MSNBC or something, and they kept having Democrats on, and the Democrats were going on and on about how amazing Joe Biden was and how he ran marathons, and it was them going overboard, pretending he was the smartest person in the world. So it wasn't even making fun of Biden so much as it was Democrats claiming that he was the most amazing man ever. That was the closest they came.
Did they ever do a weekend at Bernie's? I mean, that was...
there's so much for them to do, but they just the left is incapable of being that way. They just cannot do it, and largely because they don't have a sense of humor. Yeah. Even there's stuff that they see as sense of humor as funny regarding Trump, for example. For the most part, it's just kind of mean stuff.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I know, right?
It's like the guys in senior hall that pick on the nerdy kids and they all laugh about it. It's not actually funny, but they're laughing because, we're being mean, and that's their perspective on humor now.
It's so funny that Republicans are the ones that are funny.
Oh, yeah.
Now. I mean, we're the ones that can make fun of both sides.
Yeah,
that's why Gutfeld is so popular.
Yeah.
Because he'll just make fun of anyone. And you know what? This is Joe Biden's weekend because he's going to fit right in with everyone sitting on the beach eating ice cream.
That's true.
So
that is true.
Like, no, it's not going to be
it's Joe Biden Day.
A random day in May in the middle of the week when I'm sitting on the beach.
Right. Yeah. It'll be like.
Else is going to be there with me.
That's a really good point. More with
former president.
More with Christy Fulnecki coming up. I'm Nick Reed. Chrissy Fonecki joining
That's-
us this morning. Hi.
Hi. Are we just starting again?
Yeah. All right. Yeah. All right. Well, there was this settlement, $16 million settlement from Paramount Global. This is regarding the 60 Minutes interview with Kamala Harris, where they edited it in order to make her sound less like an idiot.
Yeah.
And so then there was this lawsuit for deceptive editing. And, the thing that a lot of people don't realize is that programs that are on the public airwaves have different regulations than on cable. And that's because
Right, yeah.
it's free, and so you're utilizing the public airways, and so there's certain restrictions on you. I mean, you can ask Sarah; she submits these FCC reports every 4 months, showing justifying to the
really?
government. Here's what we do for the community, and
It's
things
a
like
lot
that.
of fun.
Yeah, she loves it. She loves doing it. I've
Complained about
I've
it
done
all
it.
week.
Yeah, I've done it before. It's just a miserable thing to do, and so a lot of times people will, even Fox News and sometimes Greg Gutfeld, he'll cuss and like, how can he say that? Well, that is quote cable. That is a program that you only get if you pay for it in one way or another. It's not just free with an antenna, and so it's not regulated. You can have anything on. It's always been self-regulated, and it's getting a little more quote liberal over time. But that being said, the argument from the Trump campaign was that here you had what clearly was deceptive editing, and the fact that CBS refused to reveal the unedited portion, of course, fed into, well, obviously they recognize how bad this looks and so forth. And so they've agreed to, and part of this settlement, in addition to $16 million, which some I think is going to Trump's presidential library. I'm sure they love that.
Yeah.
Is that they will now make available unedited interviews of this kind that they, and
So are they going to release her?
yeah, I
unedited
believe,
of her?
yeah,
Oh,
I think
that's-
so. And I think they did parts of it already, but
I mean,
anyhow.
the whole thing.
So, of course, Bernie Sanders is ripping this, and these are horrible for democracy. And
Oh yeah, transparency
And
is horrible for democracy.
And I'm thinking, now, I don't believe, now, of course, he comes from a political party that runs the media.
Yeah.
He fully supported censoring the media.
Yeah, no free speech in his party.
Yeah, and censoring information, including from actual Republican officials on YouTube and Facebook and all these other sites. They're perfectly fine with that. And the fact that Gavin Newsom currently has a lawsuit against Fox News.
Yeah, right.
And Gavin Newsom was asked about the, and of course, typical left-winger, Gavin Newsom talking about how horrible this is, how awful this is, but said, he acknowledged, well, I'm doing the same thing, but it's different for me because they lied about me. That's what he said. It's different. It's different because, and he even, part of what he's suing because of something, it had to do with when he claimed that Trump never called him regarding the National Guard. And, of course, Trump showed that he had, and Jesse Waters said Newsom was lying about it. Newsom is claiming that, well, I didn't technically lie because of this, so I'm suing Fox News because Jesse Waters said I lied. And part of his claim is that something was edited. And I'm like, these people are so freaking hypocritical and so dishonest. And to see Bernie Sanders out there when his party is the party of censorship, when what is seen as one of the obvious potential Democrat nominees for president of the United States, which if he gets the nominee, Bernie Sanders report, he's actively suing Fox News for what he claims is the same thing. These people are such trash.
But I mean, what is he upset about? Is he trying to defend Kamala, or is he trying to
It's just
defend
because Trump,
censorship?
it's Trump and the
I mean,
media that is
Trump.
yeah.
Even specifically saying why they're mad. Like, you're mad because your candidate can't talk and can't speak, and then she was running for president. I mean, that
your
entire-
hand-picked candidate, the one that came out of the overturned election.
I know. Isn't it like it's going to be so crazy? Like in 10 years to look back at that and think,
oh man, I can't even begin to imagine what the Democrat Party is going to be like in the next few years.
they're just
because they-
around.
yeah.
I mean, and Newt Gingrich, he predicted. He said there's going to be a civil war in the Democratic Party.
Yeah, there's one kind of
then-
going on now. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
After the election, he said that.
Oh.
And said that, you know, if they didn't learn from their mistakes, that we would win for as long as we didn't screw it up ourselves, that we would be winning for
Yeah.
a long time. But
All right. Well, I'm glad your power's back on and
yes,
that you
thank
can
you.
flush your toilets.
It's gonna be a great 4th of
Yeah.
July.
Yeah. Really going to be celebrating that. Instead of shooting off bottle rockets, just everybody flush a toilet for freedom. Yeah, it's great. All right. Well, I hope it's a great time.
It's game day tonight. They
Okay.
are forward.
Oh, hey, it's very
They're,
good.
yes,
All
go
right,
tonight.
excellent. And next Thursday?
I think.
Okay.
I don't-
All right. Well, if so, then we'll see you.
Okay.
If not, otherwise. We've got Author of the Week coming up, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. And tomorrow, it is Independence Day. We will be broadcasting live from Scramblers. That's sponsored by Shirley's Heating and Air. News in 60 seconds. I'm Nick Reed. Springfield's Talk 1041. Tomorrow is, of course, Independence Day. It's Friday, which means Food Truck Friday at none other than family-owned Pinnaker Honda on South Campbell, just south of Walnut Lawn. Huge Independence Day savings happening. And, of course, Independence Day, Go America. Most Honda models built at a factory in America. 70%, in fact, sold in the U.S. are made in America. Ridgeline, Passport, and Odyssey specifically made exclusively in Alabama. So it doesn't have the Made in America label because 98% of it's built, and then they put a bumper on here. It's exclusively built in Alabama. They fall in the top 10 American-made brands. So when it comes to buying America, you are in the right place. And they still have the free fuel for summer thing going on. You get gas for 3 months after you purchase a new vehicle. And so a lot of people may think, oh, well, but we're halfway through summer, kind of. So does that mean that it's only a month and a half? Nope. It's you purchase a new vehicle with Pinnaker Honda, and it's 3 months from that point as we make our way through the summer. And all sorts of incredible deals as well. Over 100 certified used Hondas on the lot now. So it's a great time to make it out. And then again tomorrow, maybe during your lunch break, they got a food truck out there. They always have a different food truck out there at Pinnaker Honda, South Campbell, just south of Walnut Lawn. We are going to have a Author of the Week coming up, and that is sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone in just a couple of moments. And I am in the process of communicating with Congressman Burleson's office about potentially having him on the show before it is over. The election denier, Hakeem Jeffries, who is the leader of Democrats in the House, has been speaking for quite some time now. And so, whether that is going to allow him to be freed up to talk with us, I'm not quite sure yet. But just to give you a heads up, there is a chance, if he is at all available, that we will be chatting with him before the program is over, just to get, where he is on the one big, beautiful bill. Latest news.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies throughout the day with a high near 90. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 68. For your Independence Day, we'll see a slight chance for rain in the afternoon, otherwise sunny and hot with a high near 93. And looking ahead to Saturday, mostly sunny skies with a high near 90.
Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed, and it's Thursday, which means it is Author of the Week, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. And sometimes we talk about the ability to actually have authors in studio, but sometimes they're very far away. In fact, Germany this morning is where our author is, Rainer Zeidelman, a German historian, sociologist, and multiple best-selling author whose books include In Defense of Capitalism and Hitler's National Socialism. He's published 27 books, and they've been translated into 30 languages around the world. And he joins us this morning to talk about his latest book, The Origins of Poverty and Wealth, My World Tour, and Insights from the Global Libertarian Movement. Rainer Zeidelman, thank you so much for being with us this morning. And the approach to the book I'd like for you to talk a bit about isn't simply what some might consider to be academic. You traveled all over the world, and you had conversations with everyone from economists to just average, everyday people. How was it that you decided that's the approach you wanted to take in writing this book?
No, of course, there's a lot of theory about what is better, capitalism or socialism or economic theory, but I want to make it, more connected to everyday life, to the life of people in different countries. And I want to see in different countries what works better, what economic system, because like Warren Buffett told us one time, you don't have to make every mistake yourself. It's better and cheaper to learn from others. And so I decided to travel in 20 months to 30 countries and speak with, as you mentioned, average people, but also with people from think tanks, economists, entrepreneurs, politicians, to find out what makes countries poor and what makes countries richer.
I'm relatively simple in my approach to evaluating what many people see as complex ideas and theories. And when it comes to economies, even in what are seen as free market systems, oftentimes there will be variations of approaches. And you get all of, like you said, all of these theories. To me, the approach that seems to be the most simple, yet what seems to work is, well, what works best? What results in the best system for the average everyday person, wherever it is they are? Yet it seems as if many people don't have any interest in the actual outcome. Instead, they just like to talk about how they think it should work. And when you point out that form doesn't work, they will oftentimes say, well, that's because the right people weren't in charge. Do you find that, well, talk about that if you would.
Absolutely. You can talk from morning to night about theories with academics at university, but in the end, it counts what works and what not. I will give you two examples. I was in Nepal. This is one of the poorest countries in the world. People are so poor, and I learned that everything is forbidden. I'll give you one example. If you make a profit that is higher than 20% more than the production costs, it's forbidden. You will be punished, or you have to bribe maybe the politicians for this. And they have long lists about restrictions, who can not invest there. This is Nepal. And then in contrast, another Asian country, Vietnam. Vietnam, they call themselves socialists, but in reality, they opened the economy for investors, and they love Americans. In spite of the war, they love Americans, and they love capitalism, and they love entrepreneurship. And the result is that while people in Nepal are still very, very poor, in Vietnam, poverty decreased from 80% in the 90s, it was the poorest country in the world in the 90s, to 3% today. So you see, entrepreneurship and economic freedom works. If you compare only these two countries, and I've been in 30 countries.
We're talking with our author of the week, Rainer Zeidelman, German historian. His book of these is The Origins of Poverty and Wealth, My World Tour and Insights from the Global Libertarian Movement. I suspect that before you embarked on this tour and spoke with all of these different people from all over the world, that you already had an idea to some degree of what you would hear and what you would find. Was there anything that did surprise you as you traveled about? Anything that you learned that you thought, well, I hadn't thought of that, or that's something I had not yet discovered?
Yes, of course. There were some surprise. For example, Poland, what is the neighbor of Germany? I knew that they had economic success, but not how large it is. In some cases, it's even better now than in my country, Germany, that is declining. And in Poland, you see so much progress. And it's really amazing what you see there. And people in Poland also, they love capitalism. I commissioned a poll before I went to all these countries to see what people think about capitalism. And the most pro-capitalism attitude from all these 30 countries was in Poland. And, maybe I should add something. I'm an historian and sociologist. I have 2 PhDs, one PhD in history and one PhD in sociology. And so I combined both. And before I traveled to these countries, I read and researched a lot about the history, because I think you can't understand a country if you don't know the history. And this was very interesting for me, for countries I didn't know so much before. For example, like Mongolia or Georgia or Romania, ex-communist countries. And you learned, I learned how terrible it was for people, and how big was the impact of free market reforms in this country. And I think this book it's much, not everyone likes theory. A lot of books about the economy are very abstract. And I tried to read a book that you can also enjoy a little bit. It's a little bit more entertaining, because I take my readers at the hand and then travel with me throughout the world and see what happens there. And I think it's especially important for Americans. I love America. I was in no other countries so often as in the United States. I will be back, for example, in June. I will be back in New York and in Palm Springs. But I know that a lot of people in the United States, to be honest, don't know so much about other countries, the world around them. And I think this is a great opportunity for Americans to learn more about the world, and then and I have also some chapters about how I see the United States, what's wrong there and what's good there. And a lot of people in Europe, they think, the United States, this is pure bad capitalism, and there's zero welfare state. That is wrong. I think America needs more capitalism, and I hope now, with what Donald Trump does, and especially what Elon Musk will do now, that we get some less regulation, hopefully lesser taxes, and more capitalism, because this is what is also needed in the United States.
And it's one of the reasons.
And let me add one thing. What is very important, I heard that the Trump administration stopped U.S. aid now. And I think this is a great decision, because development aid helps nothing, zero. It doesn't help people. It helps only corrupt politicians in other countries. It helps bureaucracy. The way to more prosperity in these countries is that they have in their country free market reforms. This is what I showed. Development aid, it's a big waste of money. It's bad for the taxpayers in the United States, but it's also bad for the people in these poor countries, because it doesn't help the poor people. It helps only the corrupt elites in this country. And so I think it was a very good decision to stop all this nonsense. This doesn't mean, of course, please don't get me wrong, if there's for example, natural disaster, so of course we should help. And we should help a lot. Even we can spend more money to help if it is needed. But this is not what is meant by development aid. Development aid means that you give money in the hope that the other countries will then become economically prosperous. And this didn't work. It's the same, sometimes some American politicians thought you can export democracy. For example, bring democracy to Afghanistan or bring democracy to Iraq. This didn't work. And the same is with the economy. You can't export your system to other countries. And this is all what my book is about and what you can read in my book.
Final question for Rainer Zeidelman, the author of Origins of Poverty and Wealth, My World Tour and Insights from the Global Libertarian Movement. I have watched with a certain degree of excitement, as I know other people have, the results of the changes made in Argentina with the election of Javier Milei. And I'm curious about your thoughts as he came in as somebody that, relatively speaking, certainly much more libertarian is, and made drastic changes that have resulted in real changes there in Argentina. What are your thoughts about his election in Argentina and the things that have occurred so far?
I appreciate this question very much, and you will find 3 chapters about Argentina, because I've been in Argentina 22, 23, 24, and I saw the Milei movement from their origins. I spoke with the people, and I understood that a lesson that you can learn. Before Milei was successful, there was a shift, a change in the mindset of people in Argentina. Before, everyone believed in the state. They looked for everyone first. And then I saw, when I was there, people started to understand that the government is the problem and not the solution. This is first what changed. And then Milei, of course, he's a genius in marketing, and he's a professor for economy, but on the other hand, he's like a rock star. And I think he will be successful. The inflation, what was 25%, not in the year, every month, but before he came to power, 25% a month. Now it's 2%. He reduced it. Of course, you can't change things that went wrong in 1 year or overnight, because what happened there, Argentina 100 years ago was one of the richest countries in the world, as rich as the United States at this time. And then they had a decline, about decades, a decline. And of course, if you make then such radical reforms, what you call shock therapy, in the beginning, some things become worse. And I was in Argentina, I had a lot of lectures there, and I asked the people, be patient. Don't expect that Milei can change things overnight. I think it will depend everything whether people will be patient. But now the latest polls show there's 55% support for Milei. So I'm very optimistic. Let's pray that he will keep healthy and alive. And then I think Argentina can be a role model also for other countries. I think Elon Musk is also a little bit inspired by things that Milei did. And maybe Argentina can inspire also a little bit for the things that have to be done now in the United States.
Agreed. Our author of the week, Rainer Zeidelman. Again, the book, The Origins of Poverty and Wealth, My World Tour and Insights from the Global Libertarian Movement. Author of the week, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone for Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. If you're looking to buy, you're looking to sell, you just have questions. If you're going to potentially put your house on the market, reach out to her. Find out what your home is worth. Don't go off of Zillow estimates. Don't go off, those different sites that will give you an estimate. I mean, I suppose it could be somewhat accurate, but odds are it's not going to be, largely because so much of the information that is relevant when it comes to what your home is really truly worth in the marketplace relies on information that those sites don't have access to, but Emily Johnson does. And do not make any alterations to your home under the belief that I need to do this in order to sell my home. There are certain things that you may think have to be done that she will tell you that's not going to make any difference. There's no point in doing that. You're just going to be spending money, and it's not going to increase the value of your home, and it's also not going to increase the likelihood that you sell it. There may be some things that you need to do you hadn't thought of. So make that your first step. Reach out if you're looking to sell your home and have her come do an evaluation for you. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty, for all of your home buying, your home selling needs. I wanted to just briefly, before we get to traffic, I came across this story in ProPublica, and it's under their healthcare section. Miscarriage is increasingly dangerous for women in Texas. Our analysis shows. Here's how we did it. Now, ProPublica labels itself as a nonprofit newsroom that investigates abuses of power. And they claim for this piece they use 7 years of hospital discharge data, and they found the number of blood transfusions during emergency room visits for first-time trimester miscarriages shot up by 54% since Texas banned abortion. And so what they did is they took these numbers, and they're like, okay, here, this is what we found. We found these numbers here that show after abortion was banned, you had 54% increase in emergency room visits due to miscarriages. Now, the implication is that because of, and they even suggest, they're like, well, this expert we talked to theorized that hospitals were too afraid to do an abortion when the child was going to be miscarried because they were afraid that they would get in trouble because the law is very confusing, see? And so because doctors are erring on the side of protecting themselves with such confusing laws, they are taking women that would otherwise have a miscarriage, and instead of going ahead and performing an abortion on the already dead child, they just say, too bad, you're on your own. And this has resulted in women ending up in the emergency room. That's the reason for this 54% increase. Now, my immediate thought was based off my recognition of the reality that the chemical abortion drug that the left has, flooded into a number of these red states oftentimes has the side effect of, real problems when aborting the child that result in the women ending up in the emergency room. So in other words, this very situation. So my first thought of curiosity, when I read through this, I'm like, okay, I wonder how they differentiate. How is it that they determine, okay, well, these women who ended up in the emergency room for blood transfusions, it wasn't because they weren't allowed to get an abortion, but in fact the opposite, because they did an at-home abortion. And so I read through, and halfway through the 3 pages of information here is the following. Medical experts suggest that it's possible more women are self-managing abortions at home. Since a self-managed medication abortion would present like a spontaneous miscarriage, however, we can't differentiate those patients in our data. So, in other words, they did not in any way, shape, or form separate out the women patients who went to the hospitals for blood transfusions because they performed an at-home abortion. This is the sort of dishonest reporting and disinformation that we have to be very watchful for. And I know that we're aware of certain biases, and a lot of times it's very easy to point out, but oftentimes they are very clever and cunning about lying. And so they present this entire story with opinions from experts and actual numbers of a 54% increase of women going to the emergency room for blood transfusions after abortion went into effect, or after a ban on abortion went into effect. But they leave in those numbers and don't attempt to differentiate any whatsoever how many of those women actually were there because of abortion, not because of a lack of abortion. Now, I would suggest, though without an actual study differentiating the two, we don't know, but I would suggest odds are, given the fact that we know that there has been an increase in women doing abortions at home with this particular form of abortion, a chemical abortion, and knowing that that form of abortion oftentimes leads to women having to go to the hospital because of massive bleeding, that this increase of 54% is probably due to, or at least largely due to, the fact that these are women who are performing abortions, not being denied them. Springfield's Talk 104.1 broadcasting live tomorrow morning. Scramblers. It is a holiday Independence Day, but we will be out there. That, of course, sponsored by Shirley's Heating and Air. A traffic update now. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 104.1, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 90. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 68. For your Independence Day, we'll see a slight chance for rain in the afternoon, otherwise sunny and hot with a high near 93. And looking ahead to Saturday, mostly sunny with a high near 90.
There's it should be stark. It probably is for a lot of people. Polling done that was analyzed by Harry Enton on CNN regarding the massive shift in the Democrat Party away from Israel, away from the Jewish people, and towards the anti-Semitic position when it comes to these particular issues. And I don't think a lot of Democrats still really recognize that it has become the party of anti-Semitism. And not, well, one or two few bad apples. Now, before I play this audio of this analysis, there's something that needs to be understood. And that is, when in the context of what has been going on between Israel and Hamas, that is not between, Hamas is not Palestinian people. And this is what, when people on the left say that they are fighting for the rights of people in Gaza, of the Palestinian people, whether they intentionally understand this or not, that's not what they're doing. The people who are in charge of Gaza is Hamas. And they have been. Ever since years and years ago, it was determined that the Palestinian people should be allowed to have their own government. I believe this was in the 90s. I remember this discussion going on, and there were some that said, listen, there should not be an official Palestinian government, and the argument for it was, well, then you can hold them accountable. Like right now, you got Hamas, and they aren't any real governing authority, and so you can't really do anything to them, right? Now, if they were in a position of government, then you could hold them accountable. And many of us recognize that's an absolute joke, and of course, that's proven to be true. Hamas has been fully, operationally in charge of the Palestinian people. Hamas is their government. And I imagine there are a lot of people on the left, well, overall, but on the left in particular, that have no idea. They think that the Israeli government is in charge of the Palestinian people in Gaza, not understanding that, no, they have their own elected representative. Now, once Hamas got in power, they're like, we don't need elections anymore. But nonetheless, they are the ones who are in charge. So they're responsible for the infrastructure. They are responsible for the social programs that do or don't exist. They're responsible for all the tunnels that are built under hospitals and daycare centers. They're responsible for putting munitions and bomb-making factories near elementary schools. They are the ones that are responsible for that, okay? They're the ones who are in charge. So if you really have a problem with the representation, the people who are running things for the Palestinian people, your problem is not with the Israelis, it is with the people who are running that government, and that's Hamas. Now, that's just reality. That's truth. And I understand that a lot of people on the left are very ignorant to that fact. I mean, they're clearly ignorant about much of this. But the point being, when they talk about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, that terminology in and of itself is not in any way, shape, or form an accurate description of what is actually going on. Because it's not between Israel and the Palestinians. It is between Israel and Hamas. That is the battle. This is why people from, the Gaza area apply for work passports, and there are thousands of them that allow them to come work in Israel. There's a reason it doesn't go the other way. You don't have Jewish people in particular from Israel applying to get work permits and passports to go into Gaza to work. Yet you have many, many, many people who are under the Palestinian Authority that do everything they can to get out and get to the Israeli side, particularly people in the LGBT community. And that's because, again, it is Hamas that controls what goes on there. Now, when it comes to the Democrat Party and where their support lies, either on the Hamas side or the Israeli side, there's been a massive, massive shift. And I know this is pretty obvious given left-wing activism and the riots on college campuses in the name of Hamas and storming the Capitol and all the things that we've seen since October 7th. But there are some actual numbers of Democrat voters. Because I think that a lot of Democrats have told themselves, well, listen, I mean, so you got a few thousand kids on a college campus and, that are Democrat activists, but that's not a very good representation and a fair representation of the Democrat Party overall. So this was the discussion had with CNN chief data analyst Harry Enton on Wednesday.
More questions about, as he is now continuing to campaign, that Mamdani is also facing continued and serious questions about his stance on Israel. CNN's Harry Enton is joining me now and is running the numbers on this, taking this and looking also more broadly, because it speaks to the broader views in Democratic politics specifically, also speak to what's going on with Mamdani and this race for mayor in New York City.
Yeah, absolutely true. I mean, look, Andrew Cuomo during the primary attacked Mamdani as being insufficiently pro-Israel. I'm not quite sure the former governor understood how much the politics have changed around this issue among Democrats. What are we talking about here? All right, who Democrats sympathize more with, Israelis or Palestinians? In 2017, the Democratic Party was a pro-Israeli party. Look at this. They sympathized with the Israelis by 13 points, more with the Israelis than the Palestinians. But look at the sea change. Now Democrats sympathize more with the Palestinians by 43 points. Oh my God, that is a change in the margin of 56 points over the course of just 8 years. So all of a sudden, it's the pro-Palestinian position that actually reigns supreme in Democratic politics, not the Israeli position. And that is part of the reason why Mamdani was able to do so well in this primary, because those attacks over Israel, simply put, did not ring true for Democrats. They're now on the side of the Palestinians, not the Israelis.
I mean, this is a much bigger issue, specifically with Mamdani, though. I mean, an outspoken critic of Israel. He's facing continued criticism, though, for not being outspoken enough against anti-Semitism, that is for sure. But on this, talk about Democrats and how broadly how this really is shifting.
Yeah, so, you see this among Democrats overall, right? But we know that Mamdani's base was younger voters within the Democratic Party. And so I want to break it down
with younger Democrats.
Correct. So take a look here. Who age 18 to 49 Democrats sympathize more with, the Israelis or the Palestinians? Again, in 2017, younger Democrats sympathized more with the Israelis by 14 points. Look at this shift now. Palestinians, they sympathize more with the Palestinians by 57 points. That is an over 70-point shift in the margin in just a matter of 8 years. So the bottom line is, Mamdani's base within the Democratic Party and the base of the Democratic Party of younger voters, younger Democrats, have changed tremendously on this issue in 8 years' time. I rarely ever see shifts like this, Kate, in which you see one side of the equation leading by 14 points 8 years ago, and then all of a sudden the other side of the equation leading by 57 points. The bottom line is the politics around the Israelis and the Palestinians have shifted tremendously among Democrats, and they've shifted specifically tremendously among Democrats who are under the age of 50, younger Democrats who are Mamdani's base, and also the base of Democratic socialists like himself, like Bernie Sanders, like AOC. They have just shifted more so than I think that anyone could possibly have imagined, say, 8 years ago.
And a lot. You want to know why it is the left pushes DEI as fervently as they do? It's to get these results. Anti-Semitism is rooted in DEI. It is the division of good versus bad, and good is always the way that they've divided it up, people of color, and bad and privilege and oppressors are always white people. And for the left, when it comes to this fight between terrorism and Hamas and the Jewish people of Israel, in their minds, Jewish people are white, Hamas are people of color, and so in that DEI formula, the Jews are the oppressors. And if you just, this gives you such a clear understanding why the left finds DEI so important, to get as many people on board with that as possible, and it's to get these sort of results where you have like 50% swing from being pro-Jewish over to the Hamas side of things for the Democrat Party. And I must once again reiterate the importance of understanding that while some people may try to rationalize, and this is what I'm going to warn you Democrats that are normal Democrats that aren't anti-Semitic, this is what I got to warn you of. I understand the instinct to say, well, no, they're not talking about Hamas, they're talking about the Palestinians. They may think they are, but they are not. Do you know that there have been attempts by Palestinian people to rise up and let the world know that they want Hamas gone? There were a couple of different protests. You know what the government of the Palestinian people did? Came after the organizers, or those they believed to be the organizers, one of which was a young man that was, this is a Palestinian, tortured and murdered, as a message to all the other people in Palestine. When you get a sneak peek as to what is going on, and of course you do have some fully blown anti-Semitic people that are within the Gazan area, but those people they're just anti-Semitic. When you talk to the average or listen to the average non-anti-Semitic people in Gaza, they don't like Hamas. These are the people who not only don't like Hamas, but they go into Israel. They work in Israel. They go to gay pride parades in Israel. The fight here, the battle here, is not between the Palestinian people and the Israelis. It is between Hamas and the Israelis. So anytime these people are fighting against or protesting against the occupiers in Israel, that is the message of Hamas. That is the fight of Hamas, not the Palestinian people. And so when you've got this swing of within the Democrat Party in just 8 years from pro-Israel to a majority of Democrats now over and anti-Israel, which is pro-Hamas, and label it what you want. But the reality is that position is the same side as the terrorist. That is the same side as Hamas. The arguments are the same. The talking points are the same. You cannot be lockstep in with messaging and belief as a terrorist organization, but claim you don't support the terrorist organization, because that's exactly what you're doing. I'm telling you, you Democrats that are not anti-Semitic, you got to wake up. And you either have to cut your losses and abandon your party. This doesn't mean become Republican. And just either get out altogether, vote independent, start a third party, whatever it may be, or try to take your party back. But if there's anything we've learned about left-wing activists, particularly those that are anti-Semitic, they fight mean and they fight dirty. And given that apparently they've taken over at least half the party at this point, I don't know that you can get it back. So the question is, are you going to become one of them? Or are you going to take a different route? Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers.
Thank you, Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. The hot days are here, and it's only going to get hotter, guys. Is your AC ready to keep up with the summer heat? If not, no worries. It's time to call Russell and his team over at Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. They are your local experts for both residential and commercial HVAC services. They handle AC tune-ups, service repairs, and full system replacements. And if your unit is outdated, they can upgrade you with a more energy efficient system that helps you stay cool and may even save you some money in the long run. They also offer indoor air quality testing, which can help identify allergens inside your home. If you are a family struggles with allergies, this is a great way to just start breathing easier this season. So whether you need a quick tune-up or a full system upgrade, don't wait until your AC quits. Make sure to reach out to Russell and his team today. Now you can find all of their contact information under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
There are two geographic areas that Jewish people in America have found themselves in the most danger, and that would be blue cities and college campuses. And these are the areas in which, of course, Democrats have almost complete and total control of the government, the social programs, the cultural environment. And that's not a coincidence. It is not a coincidence. New York Post has a story. Jewish students at Harvard were spit on for wearing yarmulkes. They were stalked and subjected to chants of Heil Hitler. And the Ivy League university was either, quote, deliberately indifferent or even a willful participant in the anti-Semitic abuse, according to the new shocking report released by the Trump administration on Monday. Now, I imagine some on the left will say, well, you can't believe that, Trump, he's just a liar. Well, Trump, one, didn't personally put this report together, but wouldn't that be really weird for him to lie about that, given we're told he's anti-Semitic and he's Hitler? You folks on the left need to get your narrative straight. On one hand, claiming Trump is Hitler, but on the other hand, claiming that he's just trying to make Jews look like victims. Those two things are not very compatible. More than a quarter of the students reported feeling physically unsafe. Nearly 60% said they experienced discrimination, stereotyping, or negative bias on campus in the wake of the October 7th, 2023 terrorist attack on Israel. And you know what one would think? One would think that it would be the opposite. Let's say prior to that terrorist attack, if there were 10% of Jewish students on campus that said they experienced that in the previous year, you'd like to think the following year that would be down to like 1% or 0. That you would have young left-wing activists recognize the horrors of anti-Semitism, see what that actually looks like in real life, and would go, whoa, wait a minute. That's not what we signed up for. But instead, it actually increased. Apparently, amongst so many of these students, they liked what they saw and wanted to join in, wanted to participate in any little way that they could. And so while they may not have been able to participate in the fun of an October 7th terrorist attack, they could do their part in some little way on a university campus, or specifically at Harvard. This is part of the area of battle in which the Trump administration is trying to, at the very least, the bare minimum, make it a somewhat physically safe place for Jews. And this is a hill that Harvard continues to demonstrate they're willing to die on. They would rather lose billions of dollars in funding than to have Jews be safe on their university campus. All right, tomorrow morning we will be live for Independence Day at Scramblers. Glenn Beck's